The kitchen of Fort Shepherd's Field Mess Hall roared with noise, clattering trays, boiling pots, shouts from stressed line cooks. Soldiers moved like a frantic swarm. But in the middle of all the chaos stood a woman in a simple black t-shirt and cargo pants, sleeves rolled just enough to reveal lean, scarred arms. Her hair was tied in a no-nonsense knot, her expression calm, almost serene. She was new to the base, or at least that's what everyone assumed. Nobody recognized her face. Nobody noticed how her eyes flicked over every detail like a predator cataloging threats. She'd volunteered to help in the kitchen that day, quietly joining the rotation without complaint. Her name tag simply read, Mira. Inside the overheated kitchen, the tension was thicker than the steam. That tension had a source, the man stomping through the swinging doors with the attitude of someone who believed the entire U.S. military existed to serve him. Major General Colt Harriman, blunt, brutal, feared, and feared mostly because he loved being feared. He marched straight toward the prep table, shoving aside a young cook who nearly dropped an entire tray of vegetables. Pathetic, Harriman barked. You call this a kitchen? My dog eats better than the slop you insects serve. Nobody dared speak, except Mira. She didn't speak to him, she just kept chopping carrots with steady precision, as if the general was a gust of wind, not a storm. That alone offended him. He moved closer, his boots thudding like approaching thunder. Hey, you, girl. His voice dripped superiority. When a general enters the room, you stand at attention. That's protocol. Mira didn't pause. This is a kitchen, sir. My priority is not burning what's on the stove. A quiet gasp rippled through the room. A general, a cleaver, and a woman who wasn't bowing. Harriman's face twisted with outrage. He snatched the huge butcher cleaver off the table, its blade glinting under the fluorescent lights, and slammed it against her shoulder, pressing the cold steel against her neck. Every cook froze. You think you can talk back to me? Harriman growled, leaning close enough that she could smell his coffee-stained breath. I can end your career with a word. Mira finally stopped chopping. She placed the knife down with controlled gentleness. But she did not look scared. If anything, she looked disappointed. Sir, she said quietly, I highly recommend moving that blade. Harriman laughed loudly. Or what? You'll cry. Run. Tell your supervisor. He pressed the cleaver harder. Her jaw flexed once. Her eyes darkened. The cooks exchanged terrified glances. This was the moment someone usually got destroyed, humiliated, or shipped home on disciplinary grounds. But not today, because none of them knew who Mira really was. None of them knew the truth about the woman with the calm voice and the unbroken posture. Not yet, not until she moved, and the entire base learned exactly who the general had just threatened with a cleaver. The cooks held their breath. The sound of boiling pots, clinking utensils, even the hum of the overhead vents seemed to vanish. All that remained was the massive cleaver pressed against Mira's neck and the general's arrogance dripping from every word. Harriman smirked, enjoying the silence he believed he commanded. That's better, he said, savoring the moment. Now apologize, loud enough for everyone to hear. Mira exhaled slowly, unshaken, unbothered, completely in control. Sir, she said calmly, I'll give you one more warning. Remove the blade, or what? Harriman scoffed. You're a kitchen helper, and I'm a... He didn't finish, because that was the exact moment Mira decided she'd given him enough chances. Her right hand moved so fast the room didn't immediately understand what happened. A blur of motion, silent, efficient, almost elegant. 1 second the cleaver was at her neck. The next, it was in her hand. And Harriman's wrist was pinned against the prep table, bent at an unnatural angle. What? Ah, the general roared, dropping to a knee under the pressure. The cooks stumbled back in shock. Mira held the cleaver loosely, the blade pointed safely away, but the calm in her eyes was gone. What replaced it was the terrifying focus of someone who had been trained to neutralize threats in seconds. Sir, she said quietly, this is the last time you will point a weapon at a woman working in your kitchen. If you attempt it again, I will disarm you in a way that requires surgical reconstruction. Harriman's face reddened. Do you know who I am? Yes, she replied. Do you? His confusion flickered. Footsteps thundered from behind as 3 MPs burst into the kitchen, weapons drawn. General Harriman, we heard shouting. They froze. Because there on the ground was the general, sweating, kneeling, and completely immobilized by the woman he'd just tried to bully. Ma'am, 1 megapixel asked cautiously. Should we intervene? Before Mira could speak, another voice boomed from the doorway. Stand down. Everyone turned. Rear Admiral Jonathan Briggs stepped into the kitchen, hat tucked under his arm, expression unreadable. Soldiers straightened instinctively. Even the general's face fell. Admiral, Harriman sputtered, this woman assaulted me. She. Briggs didn't look at him. He looked at Mira, and in an instant, his stern posture broke into something almost like relief. Commander Reyes, he said, using her real name like a gavel, I thought you were still deployed. The kitchen erupted in whispers. Commander Reyes, a seal. Harriman went pale. Mira, Commander Mira Reyes, finally released his wrist. Harriman pulled back like a frightened animal, cradling his arm. Briggs stepped closer. General Harriman, you just put a cleaver on the neck of a decorated Navy SEAL, one who has served under my command for 6 years. He leaned down, voice ice cold. And you threatened her. In my base. The general swallowed hard. Mira simply picked up her cutting board and returned to chopping carrots as if nothing had happened. Admiral, she said evenly, apologies for the disturbance. Lunch still needs to be served. Briggs smiled tightly. Carry on, Commander. But as he turned toward the trembling general, his smile vanished. Because Harriman had no idea, his real punishment was only beginning.